Welcome back, everybody. The president is searching for new blood for his legal team today as two more prominent attorneys have declined to represent him in his dealings with special counsel Bob Mueller. High-power attorneys Dan Webb and Tom Buchanan confirmed they were asked to represent the president, but declined due to business conflicts. The Washington Post is reporting Trump's legal team has been in crisis mode since John Dowd abruptly resigned Thursday after strategic disputes with the president. I want to bring in now former federal prosecutor Seth Waxman and MSNBC national security analyst Ned Price. Welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me. Seth, I'm going to start with you. Why is the president having such a hard time getting a first-rate legal team together?
Well, just before we get to the why, I mean, let's take stock of where we are. Right now, the President of the United States does not have a criminal defense lawyer. That is a terrible predicament for him. I mean, if I had clients or friends or associates that were even being investigated for shoplifting, the first thing I'd be telling them is get yourself a lawyer. I mean, he has an impending date with Bob Mueller's team for testimonial confrontation, and he does not have a criminal defense lawyer, so it's a terrible predicament. But the reasons why, I mean, there could be several. Lawyers don't necessarily want to represent clients who won't follow their instructions. So as we see, and I can tell you for certain that the lawyers that have been representing him are saying stay off of Twitter, don't make public pronouncements about this investigation, it will only hurt you. And he seems incapable of following that advice. So that could be one reason. Another reason might be that if Mr. Trump is withholding evidence or information, rather, from his lawyers, if he's minimizing his conduct or not being entirely forthcoming, it's very difficult to represent a client where you're not getting the full picture. And finally, it could be that some of these lawyers view this as a lose-lose. I mean, these lawyers have their own political leanings and have their own feelings about the country. And if they think that their work may help the president stay in office, they may view that as a lose for the country. And on the other hand, if they were to be the lawyers representing Mr. Trump and he was thrown out of office, that would be a big loss for them. So in any event, they would always be known as the lawyer that lost the presidency. So it may be viewed as just a lose-lose either way they go at it.
So you have, Seth, the Dowd departure, then you have the courting and then the rapid dismissal, of course, of attorneys at Joseph DeGeneva and Victoria Tunsing, which leaves the president's legal team pretty understaffed. To say the least, essentially leaving Ty Cobb and Jay Sekulow running the president's defense in the Mueller probe. What does he need to do in order to prepare a proper defense team here?
Well, he's going to need time. I mean, a lawyer that would walk into this case now would need weeks and weeks of preparation, especially when this potential testimony coming up with Bob Mueller. I mean, Mueller's team is a team of all-stars. I mean, they've been doing this for years, if not decades. And the idea that a defense lawyer coming into that situation cold, I mean, we're all following it on the news, but it's different to be able to sit down with your client and start to have to review documents. I mean, you can only imagine the amount of volume of documents and emails and text messages that lawyer is going to need to go through. So they're going to need time to get up to speed. And so, what lawyer is willing to do that? I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of lawyers that ultimately will want to be involved in this. It's just Mr. Trump obviously hasn't hit upon them yet.
Yeah, the president says there are plenty of lawyers that want to be involved in it, but he just can't seem to find him.
Right.
Ned, the White House has said that DeGeneva had a conflict representing another client in the Mueller probe. What does it actually say about the Trump team that it didn't know of the conflict until after it was announced that DeGeneva was being hired?
Well, Yasmin, it's pretty interesting. When you look at this particular conflict, it's because Joe DeGeneva's wife represents Mark Corallo, the former spokesman for Trump's legal team, the same Mark Corallo who has told investigators of his belief that Hope Hicks, who until recently served as President Trump's communications advisor, planned to obstruct justice. And so I think the lesson here is that this storm, this Russia storm, is really sweeping in everyone and everything that's close to it. It's not just overtaking the president. It's not just overtaking his close staff. It's even overtaking members of the president's legal team. And so that's why I think the president is having such a difficult time in a city of lawyers finding one who will take on his case. It really is an occupational hazard. You look at what happened to Mark Corallo, who is now under scrutiny as part of this investigation for what he has told investigators about Hope Hicks. You look at Michael Cohen, the president's personal attorney, whose payment to Stormy Daniels of $130,000 just before the election is now a source of scrutiny. And you look at John Dowd. In December, he claimed that he wrote this very strange tweet from President Trump's Twitter account suggesting that President Trump knew that Michael Flynn had lied to the FBI when the president fired Michael Flynn, suggesting there was an element of obstruction of justice. So these three lawyers alone have been really torn under by this storm, and I think any lawyer who looks at the president will be concerned that he or she could suffer the same fate.
Well, it seems as if, though, the president isn't necessarily seeing this as sort of chaos in his White House. I want to read his response and get your reaction to this, Ned. He wrote, tweeted this: "Many lawyers and top law firms want to represent me in the Russia case. Don't believe the fake news narrative that it is hard to find a lawyer who wants to take this on. Fame and fortune will never be turned down by a lawyer, though some are conflicted. Problem is that a new lawyer or law firm will take months to get up to speed, if for no other reason than they can bill more, which is unfair to our great country. And I'm very happy with my existing team. Besides, there was no collusion with Russia except by crooked Hillary and the Dems." Ned, your reaction to that?
Well, there's only one thing standing in the way of the truthfulness of that tweet, and it's reality. Reports have suggested that over the past week alone, 6 attorneys have turned down representing President Trump. And that really is spectacular, not only for any client, but for the President of the United States. Representing the Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, most lawyers in previous administrations would have chased after such an opportunity. It would, as the President said, give them fame and fortune. In this case, however, attorneys have to do a cost-benefit analysis. They have to take into account the benefit, that fame and fortune they would accrue, with the cost, the fortune and notoriety that could accrue because of their representation of Donald Trump. It's not only notoriety, but it's also legal jeopardy, as we have seen. If Donald Trump really does sweep them into his own legal troubles, if he does somehow implicate them, if he does somehow disregard their advice, that puts them in a very precarious situation that these 6 attorneys and perhaps more down the road have said, you know what, thanks, but no thanks.
Well, and I got to say, by using the phrase fame and fortune to explain your possible future attorney has also got to be a deterrent there. Seth Waxman, Ned Price, thank you to you both.